everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Top 5 Friday. Every Friday we get together and we have a look at the top 5, something probably to do with Blood Bowl. And we've got another Death Zone episode for you here before we go back to our normal requesting feedback from you guys. And we are going to be looking at today the top 5 Death Zone stadiums. So Death Zone is a massive expansion book for Blood Bowl, full of crazy optional rules. Last week we looked at Wizards. This week we are going to look at some of the stadiums you can use to alter your playing conditions. Now, they're very similar to they were in Death Zone 1. I think there's a couple of cool tweaks, but there's definitely some really great ones in there that are just the way you play the game. And you know what we say here, more Blood Bowl is more better, and if there's a different way to play, we're going to like it. So my number 5 is the enclosed pitch. So there are 3 or 4 different tables of stadiums to choose from, and on those tables you roll randomly. And one of the random results for the luxury stadium is the enclosed pitch. So I'm just going to read what it says because I like this one a lot. The pitch is surrounded by a high and sturdy wall, or is built into the very ground in the form of a pit. Spectators sit high above the pitch looking down on the action below. So think Gladiator Colosseum, the Star Wars Episode 2 where they've got the big fight where everyone just, the one where Yoda lands in. Stuff like that is actually pretty cool. Players cannot be pushed into the crowd for any reason. Rather than being pushed into the crowd, a pushback player is instead slammed into the wall with great force and is knocked down in the square they occupy. So the reason I like this pitch is because I do love a good crowd surf, although if you've been following my antics this week, you'll know that I got crowd surfed quite a lot. I got overconfident in my stand firm bodyguards, and Juggernaut just wrecked me a bit, to be honest with you. However, it's really cool that instead of the players being gone, they get knocked down. And the reason for that is because you get an extra opportunity to get Kaz SPP. In fact, it kind of works for both teams. You get an opportunity to knock somebody down and roll against their armor, get some casualty points. If you've got a mighty blow piece or a claw piece, or if you've got some foulers, actually it allows you to then follow up. I know it's not as good as just having them straight removed, but this is a way to remove them forever. And as the other player, you know what, being surfed is not always fun. It can feel great. I've got an armor 7 blitzer at the moment. Feel pretty good when he's surfed and he doesn't die because he's not going to get hurt that way, and I can't quite afford to replace him. So keeping him on the pitch gives you a chance, and that's what I love about this. It gives both players a chance to get more of what they want. On the one hand, you get a chance to get some SPP, perhaps get a proper gribbly removal for the entire game, and the other player gets a chance to keep their player on the pitch. In addition, the ball cannot bounce into the crowd, though a kickoff or pass action can still cause the ball to deviate or scatter into the pitch. Instead of bouncing into the crowd and being thrown in, the ball will bounce off the wall, and it bounces only one square away from the wall before coming to a rest. Note that thrown players can land in the crowd as normal. So not only can you not smash players into the crowd, if you drop the ball, it's just going to bounce back in. It keeps the focus on the pitch. It keeps the action in the pitch, and that is why this is my number 5 stadium. My number 4 is the sloping pitch. So this is an unusual playing surface. Basically, what does it say here? The stadium is built on a serious incline. Good for one team and nightmare for the other. At the start of the first drive, roll a d6. On a 4+, it slopes towards the kicking team, and a 1 to 3, it slopes towards the receiving team. And there's basically 2 adjustments. That's it. It's a really simple pitch, and I can't remember where we saw this first. It might have just been in Death Zone for 2016 rules. I don't think it was a special pitch rule. Anyway, when you bounce, you don't use a d8. So if the ball bounces, you don't use a d8. You just use the throwing template. So it's kind of like swoop, but for balls. Okay, so if you drop the ball, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as opposed to full on scatter. So if you kind of know where things are going to end up, and I really like the way that interacts with your plan. Okay, so you know that if you knock a dude down, this ball is going to go into one of those 3 squares. I know it's not much, but it is. It can be really important for that plan. Sometimes a wild scatter ends up going to that black orc over there and you're in trouble anyway. But actually, if you power guy the right way, you know it's going to be in one of those 3 empty squares. Also, if you are making the kickoff, you know it's going to scatter backwards that way if it's not caught. So you can kind of drop your kick back a little bit, or, stage it so that when it lands, if no one catches it, it goes back in a certain direction. And your players, if you are running downhill, get to rush one more time. So if you've got no skills at all, you are rushing 1, 2, or 3 squares. If you have sprint, you can rush up to 4 squares. And yes, you guys know me, I like this one. It gives you more options. It does make the game a little bit faster as well, but only if you're playing downhill. Does it work the other way around? No, that's fine. It's fine. You're not punished for playing uphill. You just know which way it's going. So, rushing 4 times. If you've got sprint and you're running downhill, you can one-turn touchdown with a gutter runner off the line. You come on. You know I was going to like that. Number 3, we've got Ice. The Ice Stadium. So the Ice Stadium, in the unusual playing surface category, there's 3 stadiums that I think are quite similar. Ice, Astro Granite, and Dwarf and Stone. All 3 of those kind of sit here in this number 3 category. And the reason it's number 3 is because I like the Ice one, because it is thematic. So let me just grab the rules. I also love the intro. This one gets extra points for me. Ice. A violent sport on ice, it'll never catch on. Hello, hockey everywhere. Every time the ball bounces, it moves 2 squares in a direction determined by rolling a d8 instead of 1. Additionally, whenever a player falls over or is knocked down, they will slide 1 square in a direction determined by a d8 and basically they bounce. If they would slide into an occupied square, they do not move. If they would slide off the pitch, they risk injury by the crowd as normal. If they slide into a square occupied by the ball will bounce. Note that players are assumed to have been issued with appropriate kit to traverse the ice, skates, snowshoes, or enchanted cleats so their movement is not affected. So the reason I like this, the ball bounce is extra. Okay, so that's random. So if you get a bad cat, it just makes the game more crazy. This is not one for a important league match. But if you are playing a friendly game, I think all of these go if you're playing a friendly game. That said, we used them in our last league as an option. For 10k extra, you can play in a fancy pitch. You can roll randomly. So with the ice one, the balls are bouncing extra, 2 squares apiece. Not 2 different d8s, just bounces extra because it slides. And then so do the players. So you knock a dude down, you push him back, fall over. Is that right? Is that knocked down? Actually knocked down. Yeah, you knock a guy down and he's going to slide in a random direction. Now, it's not going to cause chain pushes, which is perhaps really useful. But imagine this. You run up to a dude, you blitz him, you knock him down, goes back a square, and then just continues to slide on the ice. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's thematic. When you're playing, it's going to feel like you're playing in an ice rink. And that just means we all get to make cool pitches. My number 2 is Unclear Markings. This is a Rough and Ready Stadium. So this one we have seen before, and I don't think it's changed at all. I really like it. It is really thematic, and it allows a very different kind of game feel. Okay, there you go. Some good words there. So Unclear Markings. Basically, when the kicking team goes to kick off before they deploy, you can move the line of scrimmage backwards or forwards 1 square. That is it. That is the rule. So, picture this. You are a slow team. You are a halfling team. You know, you are a stunty team. You want a better chance at getting the touchdown. You can move your line of scrimmage 1 square forward. Now, let me just check and make sure I've not missed anything here, because I like this rule because it does increase the amount of touchdowns you get. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. If you're a Skaven team, then you've got the chance at, getting another 1-turn touchdown, but it is going to increase the amount of touchdowns in the game. The pitch is a little more than a rectangle of grass with a faded line, roughly dividing it into 2 halves. When the kicking team sets up for a drive, they may choose to treat their line of scrimmage as being the normal one row of squares further back, or 1 row of squares into the other team's half. This creates a temporary halfway line for this kickoff, which the receiving team must adhere to, etc., etc. In addition, the limit of 2 players per wide zone during setup does not apply. So I'm pretty sure this is from the halfling pitch. Or the halfling book. I feel like it's halfling. I feel like it's 1/2 of the halfling pitch. Anyway, I like it. You can stack up the wide zones, creates very different deployments. It makes 1-turn touchdowns easier. I'm not entirely sure when or why you'd ever move it back 1, but I'm sure there's a cunning plan there. But the whole idea... Oh, kicking team. Oh, it's the kicking team. So you can force them to play 1 extra square. Oh, that's even better. So you can pen them in by 1 square if you are feeling more defensive. But realistically, it slows down touchdowns. I'm not sure I like it quite so much. But it is cool. I do like stacking the wide zone. I like the thematic point. Alright, you're still my number 2 unclear markings. But my number 1 has to be Uncovered Trapdoors, which is another rough and ready stadium. Trapdoors, they're crowd surf squares. So we've seen some cool ones here that just affect how things work. But this creates terrain on the board. This affects the board massively. So every Blood Bowl pitch produced by Games Workshop has a trapdoor on it. Basically, the score here is that, what is it they say, due to cost or just laziness, there are no lids on those doors. There are no doors on the trapdoors. They are just holes in the ground. So when you are playing, if you step in one, but I don't think you can step in one, but if you get pushed into a trapdoor square, it counts as being surfed into the pitch. So, roll for injury. Hope it's okay. If the ball goes in there, it gets thrown back in by a gamekeeper. D8, D6, like it deviates, basically. It pops out in a random direction. There's only 2 trapdoor squares on a pitch. But this will change a lot of the game. You will start seeing your teams avoid that square. And the reason I say that is because we trialed these rules, I don't know, back in episode 3 of the podcast, something like that. We had terrain. We had 3 different boards. I built one with like some gullies in that you could push players down. Ian and Lewis played, and they just spent the entire time just trying to punch each other down the holes. I played with some terrain against Rick. And having pit traps, just 2 squares, it isn't going to come up all the time, but it is. When the ball gets around that area, it is going to mean you get an extra option. Because the crowd, it's closer to the crowd. You just pen a guy in between the crowd and the door trap, and you're going to get more surfs. And it's just a really clever way to add elements to the pitch itself. I'm a huge fan of terrain. I'm sure we're going to see a little bit more of this from Games Workshop moving forward, whether in the way of like cardboard tokens and things like for traps. I can see special inducements and things like that, and trapdoors, pit traps and stuff like that. I would love to see, and this is one step towards it. It's a really, really small change, but it is going to come up, and it's going to be really great fun when you just blitz their dude down a hole in the ground. It's fantastic, and then your guy ends up on the edge and they counter punch you down the pitch. It's just wicked. I really love it. It's really simple, but it is just going to add a lot of action to the game. Anyway guys, those are my top 5 stadiums from Death Zone. I love the book. It's full of crazy additional rules. You do not need it. You do not need any of them, but they're so much fun to read through, to theory craft. We used these in our league last season, and we basically said if you want to play in a stadium, you can do it. You can randomly roll to see if you play in a stadium. If you get a stadium, it's 10 extra K at the end of the match. So we gave a little bit of an incentive there. So some of our experienced coaches could risk getting one of these and having an extra couple of players surf. We could risk the Astro Granite one. We could risk the extra Dwarf Stone, which is just horrific if you are any team not dwarves, because it's just +1 to armor. So there are a ton of cool stuff. There's a ton of cool pitches. It's great fun. If you're playing friendly at home, Death Zone is just going to make your game so much deeper. I love it a bit. Anyway, guys, let me know which and what your favourite stadiums are, because I love most of them, to be honest. Anyway, I'm going to disappear. Thanks very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.